So, how does Terry Nation, creator of the Daleks and the Carry On movies, have anything to do with the origins of the Ice Warriors? Hmm. Hello Whovians, and welcome to the first in our new playlist, Classic Era Doctor Who Monsters and Villains, okay? And if this is your first trip to the Classic Whovian, thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to impress all your friends with your knowledge of Doctor Who facts and Doctor Who trivia, then hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. Okay Whovians, so how did Terry Nation and Carry On have something to do with the Ice Warriors? I'll get to that in a minute. Well, actually, I'll get to it now, okay? Now, Season 4 of Doctor Who ended with the story The Evil of the Daleks. And in the final scene, there's basically a sort of civil war between two factions of Daleks and their Emperor Dalek trying to stop them. And this was going to be the Daleks' very final appearance because creator Terry Nation wanted to create a spin-off series and sell it to America. So consequently, the BBC or Doctor Who weren't able to use the Daleks anymore. So the producers asked writer Brian Hales to come up with a new recurring monster that they could use alongside the Cybermen to replace the Daleks. Now, Brian Hales had written for Doctor Who previously. He is the creator of one of the most iconic villains in Doctor Who, and that is the Celestial Toymaker. And even though that character, who was brilliantly played by Michael Gough, only appeared once, he's become the stuff of legends with Whovians and fan clubs around the world. And here's an interesting fact. Before the hiatus that saw Colin Baker's Doctor taken off the air, Colin Baker was about to announce to Perry where they would go next, and the scene cut off because that was it. The show was on hiatus. He was going to say Brighton, and we were going to get a return appearance of the Celestial Toymaker. That would have been wonderful to see, as long, well, maybe not so much, considering some of the stories written for the Colin Baker era. Anyway, so Brian Hales had been reading about how in 1900 they discovered a frozen baby mammoth in Siberia, and that got him thinking. And he also had a fascination with Mars, and he put these two together to form a story about an alien trapped in the ice. And the producer could, almost see, it suggested that he almost saw the similarities between that and the movie The Thing. I'm talking not the Kurt Russell one, that's way after this. But he wanted to create the Ice Warriors as cybernetic type creatures, enhanced creatures. But the costume designer Martin Bow, sorry if I've gotten the name wrong, to the Bow family, thought that would create too many comparisons with the Cybermen, and also it might take away from the Cybermen's initial, popularity, and almost make them look, the Ice Warriors, make them look like, just a cheap knockoff. So what he did, he decided to make them reptilian, and he decided that he would encase them in armour, and we got that reptilian, frightening sort of warrior look. And he was very keen, the costume designer, on using new materials. So he constructed the body piece out of fiberglass, and he gave it, with the mould, he gave it that sort of crocodile look, to suggest that, you know, their armour, you know, carried on with their reptilian heritage. And there's a funny story, because one of the actors who was a regular appearance as an ice warrior, Sonny Caldiz, said that you can imagine the rubber, the fiberglass, plus the mask that they wore, was just stifling, and at the end of a take they could literally pour the sweat out of their boots. Okay, but apart from that, he also mentioned that the actors had to, the costume had to be bolted onto the actors. Now, there was one scene where he actually toppled over, and the bolts from the costume actually hit him quite nastily in the family jewels. And he, in the DVD commentary and specials that you see on the Ice Warriors DVD, he actually jokes about it, but I'm sure it would have been nasty. Now, how did Carry On happen to have anything to do with the Ice Warriors? You know, like Carry On, oh, I'll say, nothing. Wrong. Because the first actor to actually play an Ice Warrior in the story, The Ice Warrior, whose name was Varga, was Carry On actor Bernard Bresslaw. And, you know, people said to him, oh, Bernie, they're not going to know it's you underneath all that makeup, you know, so why are you getting so, you know, enthusiastic about this part? And he said, they will know it's me. And that just shows you how, you know, what a wonderful actor he was, you know, very confident in his performance, because considering these had never been seen before, these were brand new creatures. And another thing we can thank Bernard Bresslaw for is he gave the Ice Warriors that classic hidden sound, like when they'd say something like, we shall take over the earth. And he wanted to suggest that's, you know, part of their reptilian heritage, but also to suggest that the atmosphere of Mars was a lot different. So the vocal inflections and so forth would be different. And of course, the atmosphere on Earth may have made things more difficult for them, you know, not used to having so much oxygen and so forth. Well, the first story, ironically called The Ice Warriors, concerns a group of scientists at a scientific base in the 21st or 22nd century, and their task is to keep monitoring scientific and ecological machinery that will hold back the glaciers that are actually making their way forward and will ruin the Earth. So, you know, even back then there were, you know, environmental concerns, and a team of the scientists find this Ice Warrior and they unfreeze him, and it's basically suggested that they've been trying to conquer Earth or settle on Earth since the Earth's previous ice age. You know, they've been there, they're frozen for 5,000 years. And Bernard Bresslaw decides that he will awaken the rest of his army. They will, you know, start this whole invasion force. And of course, naturally, the Doctor does stop them. But these characters proved so popular that they got a second appearance. And that was in the TV series The Seeds of Death, and this is where the Ice Warriors actually launch pads by hijacking Earth's transmission system, or TMAT as it's known, and release pods that change the atmosphere, that basically starve the Earth of oxygen and make it more suitable, more Mars-like. And of course the Doctor stops them again. Then we got two more appearances in The Curse of Peladon, which was set on a feudal type planet, and The Monster of Peladon. Now, in one of these, the Ice Warriors are actually allies. They're members of the Galactic Federation. and so that they became very, very popular. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see them at all after that until the current series, when Mark Gatiss wrote The Cold War, which showed a wonderful ice warrior that had been redesigned, and the new designer wanted to make them beefier and more menacing looking. And we also got to see, well, not completely, but we got to see what an ice warrior looked like outside of its battle armour. And the I'd always wondered, you know, their claws, their sort of thing like that, were they actually, you know, hands, or were their hands inside? And this answered it perfectly, because we got to see, you know, the face of the ice warrior. We got to see claws, but we didn't see it fully, which really kept the tension, which was wonderful. But inside, we got to see that the armour was, you know, biomechanical, and it was designed to regulate the ice warrior's body temperature and keep it cold, because they're cold-blooded creatures, and also, you know, power up their sonic weapons, because that's what they had, sonic guns that actually, I don't know how they actually killed sound waves. I think it sort of scrambled their people's organs or things like that. But there you go, Whovians, there you go. Now you've learned something really, really, well, I think it's really, really interesting, that Carry On actor played the very first Ice Warrior, and that if Terry Nation hadn't taken the Daleks away from Doctor Who, we might never have gotten to see these wonderful, you know, creatures, you know, from Brian Hales. So I hope you've liked that brief look into the history of the Ice Warriors and their creation. If you have, let me know. Are they one of your favourite villains? Do you remember seeing perhaps the ones I've talked about? The stories I've talked about, such as the Ice Warriors, which was lost for many years, and Curse of Peladon or Monster of Peladon? Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear what your feedback is about them. Alright then, well, that's it from me, Timelord Miff, signing off for now, and I'll see you again somewhere in time and space. Bye for now.